Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So I want to talk to you about a couple of important things today. The first one is we're seeing signs of a potential long war. Why am I saying that? Well, there are a couple of signs that we've seen in the past couple of days that show preparations for a long-term war. Mainly when it comes from the trade route from Bab el-Mandab through the Red Sea, going through Israel, and what the Houthis are doing. So what are the Houthis doing? Very recently, they came up with another statement saying that we will target any ship that deals with Israel. Not just every ship going to Israel, every ship that will also deal with Israel. It doesn't matter about its identity, so long as it's dealing with Israel, we will target that ship. And we're seeing an increase of presence from global forces in the region. I mean, yesterday there were reports about 2 French warships targeting 2 drones from Yemen. And Yemen stated there were reports that they targeted those ships back. So we're talking about a bigger escalation, including international forces. Israel previously threatened Yemen as well, saying that we will hit them as and when we see fit. But the Yemenis are not backing down. They're telling them, if you want it, then bring it on. We're willing to fight you up until the end, and we wouldn't mind, being martyrs. So what's the alternative to that? And this is one of the signs that Israel is preparing for something long, although there were many talks about it potentially taking a few more weeks, and America giving them deadlines a couple of weeks ago up until Christmas. They advised that they were considering a trade route which is on the ground from the UAE to Haifa. The Houthis released another statement saying that every trade with Israel will be targeted. They obviously criticized the Arab leaders and countries that were about to agree to such a deal with Israel and for even talking about it. And they said that they can target them as well, even if they're on the ground. And I wanted to make a quick comment about the Arab leaders here and the Arab countries, because many people have been stating, like, where are the Arab countries? Where are the Arab leaders? So I just wanted to make a quick comment before going back to the subjects that I wanted to talk about today. The Arab states are divided based on the Sykes-Picot Agreement in the early 20th century between France and England, and the areas of influence between both of these countries. France took influence over the regions from the northern part of Palestine, where Britain took the lower part, leading to parts of the modern-day Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. Now, I don't want to get into too much detail as to exactly which country each country influenced, but what I wanted to talk about is the fact that the existence of such states since the fall of the Ottoman Empire came in total agreement with the French and the British. And many of these countries, if not all of them, agreed to have a nation state for the Zionist movement, including Saudi Arabia. So the establishment of these states came simultaneously with the agreement to establish Israel. So any person who disagreed with that, including previous kings in Iraq, they were assassinated. And anyone who tried to go out of this influence circle, we saw what happened to them. Like, who's the only leader that targeted Israel by missiles? It was Saddam Hussein. We saw what happened to Saddam Hussein. And we saw the new Middle East plan that Condoleezza Rice brought with the Bush administration after they invaded Iraq and they committed crimes against humanity in Iraq and Afghanistan. Obviously, not all of it failed, but some aspects were already taking place. So for the people who are expecting anything from the Arab countries, it's as if they're expecting something from England or from the United States, really. And it's important to state here that expecting people to do something is negative on its own. I mean, on an individual perspective, each person, he or she, should be looking at what they can do, whether it's speaking, whether it's publishing something, whether it's protesting, any type of activity that can help stop the genocide that's going on. And also what's happening in Palestine and in Gaza at the moment just proves that this issue is not a Palestinian issue solely. We're talking about a global battle against tyranny. We saw how the Western governments are not representing their people when it comes to this matter. And we're seeing the anger in many Western countries and Western societies about the acts that their governments are doing in supporting this genocide, this blatant crime against humanity, and hiding the truth from them, especially when it comes to the actual facts that are happening in Gaza. Like, why isn't anyone talking about the fact that over 70 journalists were targeted deliberately by Israel in Gaza? Why are there no international news networks reporting from Gaza? Has anyone ever asked that question? People who are reporting for global news networks are reporting from Jerusalem. They're reporting from Tel Aviv. They're reporting from the Egyptian Rafah, from the Egyptian side. How can you bring your people the true image of what's happening when you're reporting from a place outside of the area of conflict? So again, about the Arab states, it's very similar to expecting something from Biden or Sunak or Macron. Do you know what I mean? That's the same thing, really. Don't expect anything from them. This proves that it's a battle of the people and the corrupt dystopian elites. And it's an ongoing battle. It's not something that can be done in 1 or 2 days. So going back to Yemen and the potential trade route between UAE and Haifa, this shows that they're going to prepare for a prolonged war. Also, not many people are talking about the actual suffering, economic suffering that Israel is having. It's a no-go zone. It's almost a no-fly zone. Most of the industries are completely shut, bar basic industries. People can't work properly. People don't know what's happening. The situation is getting worse by the minute, and there's absolute uncertainty when it comes to the future. And all of the war cabinet is worried about is selling lies to the public with increased amounts of censorship that can be cut here and there. Like, for example, in the last couple of days, the hospital started releasing proper figures of the injured soldiers in Israel, and some numbers reached 10,000, whereas Israel is saying that only just above 100 soldiers died since they invaded Gaza. They didn't take into consideration the 600 that were killed before on the 7th of October. And if you take into consideration 10,000 people wounded, usually the ratio of urban warfare is 3 injured per 1 killed. So based on that average, you're talking about over 3,000 killed from the Israeli army. Yet they're hiding this. They're giving hints, like we're having a very difficult war, we have grave losses, but they're obviously not releasing the numbers. Things pop up here and there, like, for example, a rabbi of one cemetery that buries soldiers, Israeli soldiers. He said that every hour we bury 1 person. And these are active soldiers, they're not civilians, because they give them a proper military ceremony when they die or get killed in battle. And that's only 1 cemetery from many. So they're hiding things. The public is totally frustrated with the government and with what they're doing. Many people are calling Netanyahu to resign, and the families are still putting pressure on the government to release all hostages and reach a deal where they release all Palestinian prisoners in exchange for all Israeli prisoners in Gaza. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is the image of victory. So Israel is currently looking for an icon, a sign, something to please their crowd with. And Haaretz published an article basically saying, we may not even find one. So talks about having Hanukkah in Gaza. Previously, it was Al-Shifa Hospital, which was completely humiliating and embarrassing with the amount of lies that they had, because we've been sold a lie for over 15 years that Hamas's main command base is under Al-Shifa Hospital. They've been saying that since 2008. Now that they actually went there, they found nothing. And they started lying blatantly. And even the BBC put them to shame. So then they said Khan Yunis, which is Khan Yunis is the hub. Then they said we want to reach Yahya Sinwar house. And then they said we want to reach his office. And then they have celebrations. And then they have soldiers carrying signs that we're going to rebuild Gush Katif, which was a settlement that was evacuated in 2005 when Israeli forces withdrew. And this is coming at the same time that Hamas is publishing unprecedented images about its battles in Gaza. I mean, it published a video today about some of its fighters sending a message to Israel saying that this year we will be celebrating the date of our establishment on your tanks. They were established basically on the 14th of December 1987, and they said because of this war we will be celebrating on your tanks. And they published images of them annihilating, burning down tanks one after the other. And Israel, on the other hand, Yoav Gallant came up with a statement earlier on this evening. He said that Hamas fighters are handing themselves in, and we advise all of them to do the same. He's talking about the images of the innocent civilians because they're male, yeah. He said that these people were Hamas soldiers, although no official confirmation from the IDF said that these were active fighters fighting on the ground against Israel. And he's saying, you either submit or we kill you. You either hand yourself in or you're gone. This is what's going to happen to all of you. At the same time that they're suffering the biggest losses ever, they're having to evacuate from places, go back in from another route. They get hit there. And now he's saying that after we're going to finish Khan Yunis, then we're going to go to Jabalia, and then we're going to go to Shuja'iyya. And we're almost done with Gaza. And all of them are blatant lies. They have no physical control on any of these areas. And don't forget, we're talking about some parts being in the north of Gaza. The part that they supposedly should have completely wiped off and cut off the south since the beginning of the war. And they were unable to do that to this day because there are still many residents up in the north, civilians, who refuse to flee because Israel's plan was, we're going to evacuate all of the north, push them south. When they go down south, we keep pushing them to the Rafah border to implement the ethnic cleansing campaign and force them to go into Egypt, although Egypt did not accept the idea of them taking on Palestinian refugees. And they did that out of a principle because they know that Israel wants to get rid of the whole population. And there were talks amongst Israeli leaders, someone like Avi Dichter, for example, who's a minister in the government. He officially stated, this is the Gaza Nakba. This is the 2023 Nakba, in reference to the ethnic cleansing campaign that they did in 1948 and the implementation of Plan Dalet. And I previously stated that their plan to get rid of the Gazan population was already in place since a very, very long time ago. They wanted to get rid of that population from a very long time ago. It goes against their demographics. There's 2.3 million people there. 2.2 million Israelis are already out of Israel from before the war and after the war. The people in Israel are unsure about the future of the country as a whole. There is no sign of safety. And even a previous colonel in the American army, they published an article about him in Haaretz where he said, we might have to reach a point where every settlement is protecting its own borders. Imagine that. Every settlement in Israel having its own borders and protecting itself. What kind of safety is that? They sold the idea of Israel as the safe haven for Jewish people, supposedly. And some people were fooled by that. When in fact, you're talking about the most dangerous place for Jewish people purely because of the Zionist leaders constantly implementing a regime of apartheid against other people and therefore risking themselves in the middle. They're not trying to reach any solution. They're not trying to find any viable solution. They're insisting on having an apartheid supremacist regime, and they think that the Palestinian people can somehow be managed. And that's why they went to the Abraham Accords that I spoke about previously, and the people who were trying to promote it as well on social media and bringing Netanyahu on. The Abraham Accords came to override and ignore completely the Palestinian cause and tell the Arab states that, hey, you can make a deal with us and we don't need to solve the Palestinian case. We can make peace together. And they thought that the Palestinians can be managed, ignoring them, continuing the settlement, continuing the apartheid, continuing the injustice, continuing the crimes, committing crimes against humanity whenever they wish. They think they can manage that. And then they had the 7th of October attacks, telling them that we're here, that's not going to go ahead, and no one will make any peace with you at the expense of having a solution for the Palestinian people. And the whole world is waking up to this. And people are realizing that it's no longer a battle between the Palestinians and the Israelis. They're realizing that it's a case of humanity against barbarism, of freedom against tyranny. So these were the things that I wanted to talk to you about today. I hope I added some information for you, some beneficial information for you, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.